Welcome to Pouse Around the House and part 27 in my series of loft conversion videos. So today I'll be filling the rafters with insulation board, I'll be filling any small gaps with expanding foam, I'll be covering all the joints with aluminium tape, I'll be doing some first fix electrics. And to those of you that are interested, I'll put links to all the tools I use in the description section below. So today we're moving back onto the insulation. You would have seen us put insulation board between the rafters on the lower part of the roof in a previous video. Well, I got all this insulation we brought up the other day with Big Pouse and one of his helpers. I've got more out in the garden, but for now we're going to get on with putting some of this board between the rafters from the purlins upwards, and hopefully this should be a nice simple job. And for this job I'm just using an old blunt saw. There are specific tools you can buy for the job, but it works perfectly for me every time. All I was doing now is putting some really small screws just up through the insulation board, and the odd section where if I cut it slightly too small, you find that it'll just move a little bit. So all I've done is tacked it with a small screw for now. Obviously when I overboard it's going to hold it in place anyway, but that's held it pretty solid, so it's not going to fall back down if I give it a bang. Right, so I'm back up to do a bit more insulation, but last night I was having a good think about this and I thought I've got to push on with the electrics. I've got to try and get my wiring in where I want the lights and work out where they're going. I'm going to have a few downlighters in between his rafters. That way I can run the cables in now, put the insulation over the top and drop the cables through the holes. If I don't do this now, I'm going to have problems getting that up through the insulation later on. And I don't want to be cutting big holes out of the insulation to put the wiring in. So I've got to get on with that now. We've had some bad weather. I buy the insulation to try and do a bit of indoor work. I start doing the insulation, before I know it I'm on to another job like the electrics, and this is just exactly what happens on this project all the time. You've got to do 3 different jobs to go back to the original one. So I've cleared this insulation just to one side a minute, and what I'm going to do is place a couple of junction boxes here eventually in this wall. It backs onto the cupboard so I can take some wiring down into the floor and off to one of my bedrooms. That's how I'm going to link the lighting circuit up. So I'm going to take a live from the final light in the house circuit, which I know is the far bedroom, bring it up to here, and then I'm going to place all my junction boxes down here. And what I'm going to do is just run the wire then straight to the lights and straight to the switch. That way I can put like a little accessible unit down here in the wall, so if there's any other problems with the connections, I can whip the front off that and you've got good access by there. You shouldn't have any joins then in the ceilings at all, and the only place that you'll have any splits or breaks in the cable will be at the light, down here at the junction boxes, or at the light switch. So for now I'm just going to tack the cables to the rafters up to the positions they need to be for the lights. That way I can drill a little hole through the insulation, I can pull the cables through the insulation, and they'll be in position ready for the spotlights. That way I can get on with it without worrying about feeding any cables up behind it at a later date. Flat battery. Try again. So looking up here, you can see where I've been running all my cables. I won't explain them too much because it makes sense to me, but it probably won't to you. But cut a long story short, because of the shape of this loft, because I got like this small dormer here, and then I've got this here, and these diagonal hips, if you have the lights on in one area, it doesn't necessarily light up the area. There's a lot of shadows being cast. So what I'm doing is a few separate sections. So you've got to remember my stairs are coming up there. So we've got 3 lights as you come up the stairs, spotlights, one there, and then one on the landing. And you come through the door. As you come through the door, I want down there, this is going to be like a fairly small space down there, but that's going to be, I don't know, maybe storage. You can put a few things. So we've got a few low lights there. I've done those on one circuit. Down there you've got to imagine there's going to be a wall down here. So this side there will probably have a desk down there, something like that. So again, we've got 2 lights up at head height there to go down onto the floor. And then what I've done is taken a cable down to the stud there, stud wall. So I'm probably going to have some sort of uplighter off the wall down there that'll just cast some light onto the ceiling. I didn't really want any downlighters too low down because, I don't know, it just seems a bit pointless. We come across to here. I've got 4 you can see hanging down there in this dormer. I've added another one there that'll be shining back down this way. So all those will have a switch from somewhere in the middle as you come through the door, and you can turn them all on and off. The only one that I'm going to do slightly different is as we come around here. So with this one, we're just going to take the main feed out to the light, and then we're going to put a ceiling rose effect of your junction box behind. I'm going to batten this, and it's going to be like a false wall there with plasterboard and insulation. So put the junction box in there. Now obviously doing the light switches are going to be in the middle. You're probably thinking, well, where are you going to do the cables for that? Well, they're going to go underneath the floor through the joists, and then they can come up underneath this stud wall that I got to build, and then the light switch will be on that. So that's fine, I can connect all that up at a later date. I'll still have access to the floor, and I'm not going to insulate these cheeks just yet. One other thing I forgot to mention is I just remembered last minute, my smoke alarm. Now I've got a smoke alarm downstairs which is already linked to the mains, and another smoke alarm down on the ground floor. So you can't quite see it here because it's just down there by the joist, but there are the wires for the smoke alarm, which is just below us down on the landing, or the downstairs ceiling there. So what I've done is just roughly put the 3-core in earth, which is what you need for the mains powered smoke alarms, and I've run that up there, and you just see that's one of the cables hanging down up there. That's what it's going to be up on my ceiling. My work is done here for the day. I'm off in. See you next time. Right, it's been about 2.5 weeks since I've been doing this insulation, so I've got to crack on with it now. Time is getting on. You'll notice I'm in my waterproofs. There is a bit of drizzle outside. I don't really need these on. The only purpose is I've discovered whilst cutting this insulation board that if you just wear a full set of waterproofs, jacket and trousers, very easy to wipe down afterwards. You can pull them off, chuck them in the shed. In the house, there's no mess on you. Right, so where I got my electrical cables coming down through the insulation, I could just cut them with a little plasterboard saw, but to make them nice and neat, I'm just going to use this round hole saw. It's fine for going through plasterboard or light materials like insulation board. So I've pretty much done all this side of the loft with the insulation between the rafters now. I've left a little bit over there on the end, so I've got to get in and put a few battens there so I can secure the plasterboard later. So I just want to give myself a bit more room by leaving the insulation out for now. Holes there for the electrics, hole there, right the way down to the bottom. I haven't done any tape yet. I'm going to do that once I've done all the insulation. We'll go over, we'll tape all the joints up before putting the overboard or underboard of insulation on. I'm going to show you something quickly just to show you why this is taking a bit of time and why it's so fiddly on a pitch roof if you want to try and insulate it properly. Right, so if you look here, it would be a nice idea to have one sheet of board all the way without having any joints. But where you've got this, I'll show you this side, where you've got this ridge board here, you've obviously got this angle. Now if you try to put a piece of insulation board up in there, when you've got an angle, you see down there at the bottom where those birds' mouths are, so you've got that flat angle there, right? And then as you go up there, you've got this angle there. Well, if you try and put a piece of board in, you can't, because it'll only go in at the full width of the closest side to you, if that makes sense. So from here, this side of this ridge board, down to here, is shorter than from down there up to down there. So basically it's impossible. So the only way you get around this is by doing what I'm doing, which is cutting a piece of board, whatever length you want. I've done it that length there, from there to there, and cutting your angle. That way you can slot it up and in, and cut your 90-degree line across there. But obviously down the bottom, you've got to wedge that piece of board in first as well, because it sits down further over this wall plate, not on the end as you can see down there. So to do that, you've got to sort of slot it up. Now by the time you push it down there and sit it up, you end up with this gap. So like I said, I've been doing this angle, getting a short piece of board in there, then I do this one, push it back as far as I can get it, sit it flush down there on the wall plate, I got it nicely in line, then you end up with this slot here. And then that means you can just put a nice little sort of briquette, if you like, just a rectangular piece of insulation board, and just slot that in. And the other thing is, obviously around here where you've got these joins, the odd little gap there where the bit's chipped, I'll go around that with a foam filler and just make sure I fill any gaps and joins up. And then I'm going to go over all the joins with tape eventually before I put the overboarding or underboarding on. And that way I know all this is sealed up nicely, and then I can whack the other bit of insulation board, which will double up over the top then. So I'm back onto the other side of the loft now. Now, I haven't been filming all of this purely because it's a bit boring for me doing this, so you watching me fit insulation is probably twice as bad. But you get the general idea of what I'm doing, cutting it to size, fitting it in. Like I said, when we get up on the top here, on the ridge board, I've been trimming a shorter piece at the right angle so I can fit it up. I've been wedging the pieces down on the wall plates. Those pieces go in, then a third one in the middle. When I've been going on these diagonal cuts by here, I've been doing a bottom cut here, so I get that triangle, get that cut nicely, because this is at a funny angle, get the tapered angle in, fit it in, so it's all nice and snug. And I've been doing the ridge board again up here, fitting that into place, and then putting my middle one in. So I got 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece. Now another thing I'm doing, which I don't know if is common practice generally with fitting insulation, but I've just been using these little screws. I found this the best thing for me. And if you get a piece of insulation board which is slightly loose, then all I've been doing, just so it doesn't fall back out, is just putting some screws, one there, one there, one there and one there. Now that's not on every board, I've just been doing on those ones that are, like I say, ever so slightly loose, and if you gave them a knock they would come out. The other thing I've been doing, which I think I showed you earlier, was putting some screws up here, and I've been putting them there so that when you push the board up, it's not going to push past it into the felt. It's maintaining that gap for the airflow above your insulation and below your felt, or below your breathable membrane. I keep calling it felt, you'll notice that in previous videos. Oh, there we go, that's what happens when you take your mask off. As I was saying, it's not felt. I've been using a Tyvek Supro breathable membrane, and I keep calling it felt, so I'm sure people are going to flag me up on that. But basically it's fully breathable, and one of the better ones on the market, to be honest, and it should be at the price of it. These lights are blinding me. Now the damage is done. These lights are blinding me. Right, so that's it, it's dark now, I'm knackered, I absolutely hate doing this insulation, there's no satisfaction in it whatsoever, it's just tedious, takes ages, it's messy and it's boring, and I'd rather someone else did it, but there we go, it's got to be done. I've now done all the insulation between the rafters. The only bits that I've left are where I need access. For example, there's one panel on the cheek of the dormer, which I'll show you in a minute, for cables. I've left the 2 bits in the end still where I've got to attach a bit of batting in there, so I need some access. So I'll just do you a quick look around the room. There's the insulation there. If I turn this lamp around so we can see over there, you can start to see the insulation now up there, and you can see where I've done all these cheeks of these dormers around there. There's the one that I've left because that's where I'm going to have a few junction boxes for cable, so I'll insulate around that at a later date. But in actual fact, if you look around the corner there, that bit backs onto the cupboard, so it's not essential that I insulate that bit, but I'm going to anyway. And as if by magic, it's light behind me, it's a new day, I got those dirty waterproofs off, and we're going to get on with doing some foam filler. So this is the tape I'm using. It's aluminium tape, it's sticky backed. This one's 75mm by 50 meters. You can get it in 100 meter lengths, and you can get it in different widths. Now from my own experience, the wider you go with the tape, the more adhesion you get. If you go for the narrow one, sometimes it doesn't stick as well. So I've gone for the 75mm rather than the 50. There we go, you can see all the tape there that I've been putting in, all the joints. Not very pleasant work. Again, I hate doing this if I'm honest. It's boring, dull, and you always think you're finished and then there's another one that you spot that needs to be done. But yeah, so I've done all that. Like I say, this, I don't really know if you need to do it on this layer of insulation because I'll be doing it on the next layer as well, but what this does is helps create your vapour barrier, which effectively means that on the inside of your room, any moisture from just the general household, your breathing, sweat, all that kind of thing, you have windows which allow it all out the window, and then above this layer of insulation you have your air gap, which you've seen and you've felt. So on the outside all that moisture should expel easily anyway, because I've got an air gap and I've got the breathable membrane. So that's it for today's video, and if you enjoyed the video then please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and press the bell symbol for regular notifications. I've been Pouse around the house. Ta-ta, farewell.